The automotive industry is falling apart. More mechanics are leaving the industry than are joining. And literally nobody wants to work on these complex, complicated cars. So is it even worth it anymore to become a mechanic? Let's talk about it. I've really wanted to make this video for a long time, and I'm glad that we're finally doing it. I actually got a call from a friend last night talking about him wanting to put his son through automotive tech school, asking me if I still think it's worth it because he's seen all these news articles about how the industry's falling apart, all the mechanics are quitting, and being an automotive mechanic is now a dead-end job. And I think we should start off by talking about some of the reasons I would say, no, it's not worth it. The very first reason I would say it is not worth it to become an automotive mechanic these days is because it is extremely low pay. Now, I do know technicians who make a ton of money. They've got ranches and nice cars, but they also spend 70 hours a week absolutely busting their back for that money. So with that being said, the automotive industry functions on flat rate where if a job by the book says it's supposed to pay an hour, you get it done in a half hour, cool, you just got paid a whole hour in half an hour, so now technically you could double it up and make double what you were supposed to make, and that's supposed to be how it works. But these days, with how complicated cars have become and all the different systems involved, it's actually kind of works against it to where, okay, it pays an hour, but the computer took so long to diagnose it, or you had to look so much stuff up, or you had to take so much stuff off the vehicle. Now you spent 3 hours, but you only made one, and by the end of the day, you've technically only worked a half day, even though you were there for 12 hours trying to fix something. So that's where the pay scale doesn't really add up to the technical ability that's required these days. And so it evolves into mechanics just having to work more hours to try to offset, and you end up working 60 hours to try to actually take home 40 paid hours. And then you stack in a tool bill on top of that because you had to buy all of your tools to do it, which eats half your paycheck. You're not really earning very much. The second reason is going to be work-life balance. Now, this is something where if you are single and you have no family that really is always kind of wanting to hang out with you and you really don't have many friends, then the automotive industry is for you. I say that jokingly, of course. Well, kind of. But if you look, there are certain correlations you can make with the automotive industry, divorce rate being very, very high. And that is because your work-life balance is pretty skewed heavily towards work. If you look at most dealership technicians, you want to work 5 days a week, right? So you can make hopefully 40 hours. But generally, you want to show up early so you can get the good cars when people are bringing them in to drop them off early in the morning. Maybe they're just taking a late day at work, so you can get that good service money, oil changes, tire rotations, those sort of things. And then you want to stay late because sometimes parts come late in the day or a customer wants to pick up first thing tomorrow morning. So you got to get that car done so you can meet those expectations and be a high performer. That then evolves into Saturday work. Most people who are working all week long, but they need an oil change or they need something simple done, they bring their car in on a Saturday, so you don't want to miss out on what is known as the gravy work, the easy work, the work that you can maybe do 2 at a time if you have 2 lifts or 2 bays, and you can really stack those cars up and make a lot of money on a Saturday, so therefore you kind of work every Saturday, even if you're not required to. You just need to make up the hours that you may have missed out on because you had a crazy diag job that killed your Monday or your Tuesday. Well, let me make that up on Saturday. So then you find yourself with Sunday being your only day off, because that's pretty standard across the auto industry. That's a lot of hours. That's a really bad work-life balance. That's not a lot of time spent at home. That's early mornings, late evenings. Doesn't leave a lot of time for fun hobbies or activities, which I think leads into our next point. I think a lot of people enter the industry with this expectation where reality does not meet what they were thinking was going to happen. Now, a lot of us grew up with the Fast and the Furious franchise, and we saw Dominic Toretto wrenching on his Charger, and we thought that's what we were going to be doing. We thought we were going to be doing cool aftermarket stuff, making cars faster and doing modifications, when in reality, you get to the dealer and you're working on a crossover with hair ties and french fries all over the floorboard. You're upside down trying to fix something underneath the dash or replace a cabin air filter. Or you're working on somebody's beat up old work truck and stuff's falling in your hair and in your face, you're covered in grease, fluids spit out at you, and it's just, you know, it's not the romanticized picture that everybody thinks it's going to be. And that's where, for me, that was a major like adjustment walking through the door, was realizing, oh, that doesn't actually play out. Like, hey, that dude in the corner is like 60 years old and he's working on the same thing I'm working on, so what do I do? And then maybe you look at the aftermarket and you try to say, I'm going to go work on lifted trucks or cool cars. Well, those jobs are really heavily sought after, and you have to have all this experience to get to that point, but you can't get that experience in the dealer. So what do? Career growth is another huge one because it's very limited. Now, you got to understand, you go into the industry and there's a couple layers to it, but after that, you are never going to be qualified enough to do anything else. So think about it this way. You start off as a lube tech. From there, you say, well, now I'm a better tech. Now I'm a line tech. I'm working on most of the cars that come in. And then from there, you have the ability to grow into master technician, which is where it's like, okay, I get all the complicated cars or the exotic stuff, the R8s, things like that. And then from there, your only other option is really to be shop foreman or shop manager. And then you've also got 30 other people that are wanting that same job that you're competing against. But that shop manager position very, very rarely evolves into service manager or general manager. Whenever I went into the industry, I had this expectation that I was going to be the subject matter expert, best technician, I is best mechanic. And that was going to then somehow evolve into me getting handed the keys to my own dealership and run the whole thing one day. Boy, was I wrong. My expectations were completely skewed whenever it comes to that. And you've really got limited options coming from that, but we'll go over those here in a little bit. Being a mechanic is so expensive. Now, take this for example. So this is a dipstick that is used for Audi models that don't come with their own dipstick, which is pretty much all of them these days. I remember about 10 years ago, this cost me about $120. And let's say that you're a lube tech making $10 an hour. We'll round down because it's easier, but I think lube tech at Audi, I think I started at like 13. So $10 an hour, this would then take me 12 oil changes to pay for this tool. But let's also say that it's my first day on the job. I had to buy this tool because you can usually only borrow it 1 or 2 times from somebody else before they say, hey, you need to get your own because you keep taking mine and I need it. $120, so I have to do 12 oil changes to do this. Let's say that an oil change takes me an hour because it's my first day, so I spent all day doing oil changes, right? Now I paid for one tool. Dang it. Now I need different sockets. Now I need an oil filter wrench. Now I need gloves. Now I need air tools. Now I have to take tires off. Now I got to buy a $500-600 impact. You can see quickly how then you start going into debt, which then the financing option sounds good, but it's a super high interest rate. So you're just, as you grow as a technician, as you learn how to do more things, you have the barrier of, hey, now I have to learn how to do it and get proficient at it, but now I'm also paying down a tool bill, and back to that $10 an hour for 12 oil changes. Well, that $10 an hour after 12 oil changes doesn't even pay for this because you've got taxes and benefits coming out. So you quickly find yourself in a hole where even being a line tech, most line techs have $200-300 a week tool payments, and it's absolutely insane. I really wish that dealerships provided all the tools. Some have these days, but they're so few and far between, and most technicians just, it's easier to buy your own tools and utilize your own stuff so you have it ready to go instead of being like, oh, nope, the shop only has one. I've got to wait for somebody else to finish it, and then you're just sitting there with nothing to do. The biggest reason I would say it's not worth it kind of goes back to kind of some of that expectation that we were talking about earlier with what you would be doing versus what you actually work on in a dealer. And that's quality of life. I mean, think about it. If you walk into a dealer, let's say that I'm doing some services, just a typical day. This technician next to me is playing Taylor Swift on volume number 70 on his stereo. This one's blasting death metal or Slipknot or something random, maybe some Luke Bryan. And then I hear tire machines going all day. I've got air impacts going all day, air lines that are constantly hissing a little bit. And then I'm breathing in all these different fumes from brake clean and all these other chemicals that I'm working with, and then stuff's falling on me, dirt, I'm in the floorboards of cars. Who knows what bodily fluids are there, because people have done some nasty things in vehicles that I've seen. It's quality of life wise not that great. And then you take it from that perspective and you say, well, throw some headphones in. Most places don't let you, and you'll actually get written up if you have earphones in. And then the other part is, well, then wear earplugs. Well, if I've got earplugs in, this guy over here is high on brake clean because he just doused the entire car. He's going to back out. I'm walking past to go to parts. I can't hear if he started that car and threw it in reverse and isn't paying attention. So then I get run over, and now I'm out of work and I can't provide. It's tough. And then all of that, coupled with lifting up heavy tires, you get carpal tunnel and all sorts of other issues from vibrating your hands all day with an impact or turning a wrench or being in complicated cramped spaces. Like, I've realized things about myself where I've got kind of lasting tinnitus where certain noises or resonances really bother me. And then same thing with, like, even whenever I fall asleep at night, I've noticed, well, my hands don't lay flat. Like, they always kind of curl. It's kind of weird, but it's one of those lasting impacts from being a technician where you just start to notice things. I mean, I've got broken fingers that I never had corrected because I had to keep working, and it's rough on your body. And then you couple that with a 6-day work week, working 10 to 12 hours a day, and your only rest day is Sunday, you kind of let your health go. You know, you're eating fast food most of the time or a sack lunch. Maybe you just skip food altogether. You only eat dinners. I still do that for the most part. And you don't have time to work out. Your health takes a toll, and so does your quality of life. And then most technicians fall into the pattern of, abusing alcohol or even drugs at that point, and you go down a rabbit hole, you spiral, and then that affects every other aspect of your life. And it's just a really tough cycle and a tough habit to break out of. It affects marriages, it affects relationships, it affects kids. I've seen it so many times throughout my automotive career, and that's one of the things where I would say that 100% is not worth it in any event, no matter how much you're making in a dealer. At this point in the video, you're probably thinking, why on earth would I ever become a mechanic? It sounds terrible. And if you are a mechanic and you're watching this, you're probably thinking, wow, I feel that exact same way. I'm quitting tomorrow. Don't just yet. I still think there's value in being a technician. Let's break that down. The very first reason why I would say you should still become a mechanic or continue to be one is because you have technical ability. You have talent. You have a skill that most of the population does not possess. Think about it. How many people do you know, or how many people do you see parked outside of Discount Tire that don't even know how to put air in their own tire? Those people are not as self-sufficient or capable as you are. You have a technical proficiency that most people don't possess that you can apply to other career paths, other avenues, or other aspects of your own life. The second reason why I would say it is beneficial to become a technician is because of the fact that there is a major technology gap across the automotive industry, where all of these new cars that are getting more complicated and more complex, people don't know how to work on them. Now, if you grew up with technology or you're good at computers, video games, whatever you want to say, you can go in and you can bypass some of those older technicians who just show that unwillingness to learn, say, it's not a real car if it's all ran by computers. That's just a very ignorant mindset, and those people aren't going to get that opportunity to advance to a position like shop foreman because they are unwilling to learn. You know the exact people I'm talking about. They have keyboard clicks on and they like to pick and poke at their phone. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Now, with that being said, you do need to study. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of very, very specified, diagnostic skills, and you're going to have to get really, really good. But if you are that good and you're willing to put in the work, you have major opportunities, because if you're that guy in the shop, you can get really good with electronics, and then you can go work for a company like I did, where it was, hey, let's do remote diagnostics. Let's program cars on laptops across the country or across an ocean. You get really, really good with tech. I promise you, there are so many other career trajectories and pathways that open up as you get better. The third reason is because the industry is finally starting to change. We are finally seeing certain auto manufacturers as well as dealer groups say, you know what, it makes more sense to pay hourly. Because I think that if we pay hourly, we're going to get technicians who aren't looking over their shoulder, freaking out and trying to double stack cars. They're going to take more time. They're going to be more careful. They're going to be able to take an extra minute or two to properly diagnose a car. That way it doesn't come back, or they don't sell the customer the wrong thing and then cause distrust and problems and arguments. And they're also going to have less cars with loose oil filters, loose lug nuts, things that go out the door that are just completely preventable if time wasn't truly a factor. If people could take more time on a car, fix it right the first time, well, then their customer service index score would actually go up. Retention would go up because onboarding is an extremely expensive process. It's usually about $5,000 per employee in a dealership setting. And everybody's going to be happier. And some people are finally realizing that, you know what, all the money in the world to just make that bottom line just isn't worth it. Let's focus more on rebuilding customer trust and loyalty, retaining employees, and actually having people excited about a mechanical career where it's not just backbreaking work to barely scrape by and make a living, but it's actually fair. And I'm really excited that we're finally starting to see that. The final reason, and probably the most important, at least to me, is because it is extremely rewarding. Now, I've always bounced back and forth between saying that being a mechanic is a thankless job because the amount of people who actually say thank you, probably almost every single one of them. But that little bit of a 1% where you can bring a car up to the service drive and somebody says, hey, thank you. That is the best damn feeling in the world. It is. Even when your service manager walks out and just says, hey, thanks, like nobody could figure that out. That's awesome. Or somebody just says, good job, it's rewarding. Or whenever you've got somebody who, it's their only vehicle, they're a single parent, they've got 3 kids, it's just a bad situation, and they took it to 12 other shops beforehand that all wanted to charge them thousands of dollars, they're bringing it to you, and you're like, hey, this is like a $50 part, and I'm only going to charge you a half hour. I mean, it just feels good. It does. And, I know that feeling good and thank yous don't pay the mortgage. Trust me, I know that probably better than most. It's one of those where you just build your confidence up. It makes you feel like you're doing right by somebody. And, also then having that ability to say, hey, I can fix anything, I can work on anything, and, it's all in my hands. It just feels good at the end of the day. And that's probably one of the biggest driving factors is if you're somebody who's motivated by that, then I would highly encourage you to pursue a career in the automotive industry or the mechanical field, because at the end of the day, there's no greater feeling than that. I really hope that I haven't scared you away at this point from your career as an automotive mechanic. I do think that there are some valid arguments both for and against. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section, and as always, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Tums.